Hello, friends, and welcome. So today I have a student model, Hunter, and she's going to be showing you all of the poses. Oh, I wish. It will be me, and I might be slightly off my mat if she decides to stay here because, I have a hard time kicking kitties out of comfort zones. Today, we are going to move into some more of that sacrum, but we're going to talk about the pelvic floor and the corset along with that, which we started to do last week by all means, but we're going to kind of start to bring that up and move it into the solar plexus as well. So all of that said, you can start lying down on your back. So come on to your back. And first, just get yourself in a position that you can maintain for a couple of breaths here, a few breaths, and where you feel that softness, right? Like you can release down into gravity. And of course, the more these muscles in our bodies soften and release, the more they widen against the floor. So you might just notice if you feel any width coming across the back of your body. If the muscles on the back side or whatever's touching the floor, right, feel pliable, so to speak, or they feel like they're really knotted and rigid and have a hard time softening. Don't judge those muscles if that's the case. Love them, love them, love them, right? But notice. And hopefully, here on our back, when we're not holding ourselves up, right, working what we say against gravity, hopefully maybe you can find even more softness in your abdominal cavity. And when that abdominal cavity is nice and soft, of course, we get that rise and that fall of the belly, right? Not a pushing, not a pulling. You are not doing anything other than bringing your awareness to it. But when you inhale, you'll feel that belly rise towards the sky. And when you exhale, you'll feel it fall back down towards the spine. Now, this is how most of us traditionally breathe. Every once in a while, there's someone with reverse breathing pattern, right? And then part of your work would be to try to change that, right? So that your belly rises when you inhale and falls when you exhale. Okay, so walk your feet into hip distance or put your feet on the floor if they were extended. I didn't say where your feet had to be just now. So from there, you're going to interlace your hands behind your head. If that's not comfortable for any reason, it could just be one arm if you have a shoulder injury, but we are going to lift up just a little bit in a moment here. And so I do want your neck to be protected. But if that doesn't work for you, you could just stick with the cat-cows we're going to start with. So my hands are interlaced behind my head. My shoulders are softening. My elbows do not have to touch the earth, but as long as they don't feel like they are in pain and they can soften into this posture, right? And first, we're going to just start with some really simple pelvic tilts, we call them, or cat-cows, right? They've got a lot of different names, actually. So you're going to inhale and you're going to let the low back come off the floor just a little bit as the upper rim of the pelvis lifts, right? And then exhale, pull that upper rim of the pelvis down or your low belly down to it, right? And flatten towards the ground. And inhale. Let it be just that simple. Exhale. They don't have to be really big moves. Less is more with this stuff. And if you're newer to this work, usually new people tend to do too much, right? So inhale and you're moving into that arch, anterior tilt, it's called of the pelvis, and then exhale. This is your posterior tilt. We started to add that language in last week. And then one more time, inhale into your anterior tilt, but here's where we start to add on. Exhale, as you pull the belly down, let your upper body lift about an inch or two. Don't go very high. And when you inhale and come down, you're going to move into that cow, right, or that arch. And so keep doing that. You keep doing that even though I'm going to talk about other things, right? One, When you add that lift in, make sure you're not just jamming your head up with your neck muscles or pushing with your arms, right? You're pushing down so much from your lowest abdomen that it lifts the upper body with ease, I'm going to say. Yes, you're working. Of course, you're working for it, right? But it's not that you're trying to jam the head up. 2, I want you to think of this movement coming from about 1 to 2 finger lengths beneath your navel, right? So if you were to put your index finger on your belly button, it would be about where your ring finger is. That's the piece of the body that I want you to focus on pulling down. If it helps you to put your hand on your abdomen once, just so you get that and push down. I'm literally using my finger and I'm pushing that part of my abdomen down as I lift. So I'm ensuring, yep, that's the piece that I'm working for. Okay, awesome. Now add one more piece in. As you start to lift, same stuff, but gently, gently move into an imaginary block between your thighs. I mean, like 20% if it was there. And you could put a block in there, by the way, right? So again, it's not a huge move. It's just enough to encourage my magnus adductor, my biggest inner groin, and my pelvic floor to engage. Yeah. Now this time, stay up, keep those 2 points, right? The corset and the pelvic floor engaging. Let your head lay back into the hands and let it soften. Ensure that's happening. And come all the way down. Release your arms down for just a moment. You could walk your feet wide and lean your knees in, or just leave the feet steady for a breath or 2. Let the belly be super soft. So now this is where we check into making sure we have both elements. We can engage the muscles, but we can also soften them. So it's that soft belly breath, right? Like when you inhale, the belly lifts up away from the spine. And when you exhale, it gently falls back down towards the spine. So now we're going to add another piece in. Interlace, maybe other index finger just for good measure, right? Keeping things more symmetrical, so to speak. So it starts off similar. We inhale into our arch, right? And we exhale that 3 fingers down from the navel. We pull the belly button down to lift the body. And at the end of that move, this time bring your elbows up and in. And it's going to lengthen your neck without you having to use the muscles of the neck to try to tuck the chin in. Yeah. So I'm same exact thing, moving into the block. I'm toning my low belly to lift up. And as I get up, the last thing I do is I bring my elbows in towards the center. And now one more piece that you can add on, right? Everything else we've done thus far, and then maybe those knees come into the chest. And right here on your inhale, this is really important. Slow, 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 controlled. Don't just plop everything down or move too fast for that. And still an arch, right? And exhale, first my belly button and pelvic floor, then my upper body, then my elbows, then my knees. So we're kind of segmenting it and separating it out. But the movement down, the inhale down, that's all one slow, steady move. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, makes sense? So I'm going to add some refinements in for my people who really enjoy that way of working, right? You're doing the same thing. You keep going. Still moving to the block, all the things. But here's the thing. When you lift your knees up, don't let your feet move into each other. Keep your heels and your knees hip distance. That's going to keep the rotation of the inner groin, right? You're almost there for anyone who's starting to get pooped. But of course, if you need a little break, take a little break. Now, the next time we come up and in, we're going to stay up and in. Yeah. So keep the elbows up, bring the knees. And if you haven't been lifting the knees until now, bring them in, glue the knees together, and then just wish wash. The elbows are going to go one way and the knees are going to go the other. And just let it be kind of a, think of it more than power in your core. This one we're doing for the ringing of the abdomen. And come to center and inhale, slowly lower that down with control. Bring your arms by your side. Again, feet can stay as they are. I like to walk my feet wide and lean my knees in so my hips can really soften completely as well. Let that belly be so soft that when you inhale, right, it lifts away from the spine. And when you exhale, It moves back towards the spine. It's not a huge move. I'm not pushing or pulling. Okay. Now we're going to do a little breath addition to what we're doing. I mean, we're moving on the breath, but now this is going to become about the breath. So walk your feet into hip distance, right? And so we're going to play a little bit with trying to hollow out the abdomen. So I'm in a comfortable position, but my feet are hip distance. My arms are in a comfortable position. We're going to inhale neutral. You can watch me for just a second, right? And then I'm going to exhale. And when all the air, that same spot, right, 3 fingers down, if I put my index finger on my belly button, where my ring finger is, that piece is going to pull down. And then I'm going to try to hollow. I'm going to try to kind of suck the rest of the abdomen down towards my spine and hold it in until it's as long as comfortable, I'll say. And then I'm going to soften my belly first and then take an inhale. And now watch what's happening. That's my inhale. Okay, so let's do a couple of those together. And if you don't get the hollowing out right away, just think of like pulling not just back to your spine, but also up through the crown of your head, because we're going to start to work with that, right? So when I pull that spot, that's the next piece of intricacity. As I not only pull down, but I pull up to the crown of my head. Inhale, fill up the belly. Exhale, slow, steady breath, not too much different there. At the end of the exhale, I'm going to pull that space, 3 fingers down from my belly button down. And now try to until it's uncomfortable, or not till it's comfortable, just until you feel like you need an inhale, and try to find it before the inhale, right? So you can soften the abdomen muscles and then inhale. So I'm going to do it without as much talking. So again, you can see my body if you need to. So here we go. Inhale. Okay, we'll come back to that, but we were doing it on the ground where it's more accessible to many folks. Go ahead and bring your knees into your chest. Circle your knees together. And then go the other direction. And then let your legs move in opposite directions so that you are circling the legs through their range of motion, or probably not the full range of motion, but go ahead and go the other way. Waking the hips up, I'm going to call it. And then bring the knees into the chest. Now tone that belly button, right? 3 fingers down from the belly button and rock up. Come onto hands and knees. So I want you to imagine that there's a ceiling that comes down to you, and AKA it would be the same as what we just did on the ground, right? Laying down on the ground, but now we're working against gravity, so to speak. We're holding ourselves up, right? So that means I don't have a pelvic tuck, nor do I have a pelvic tilt. Take an inhale. And we're going to go right back to that. Agni Sara is that breath, by the way. I forgot to tell you that. Exhale, pull your belly right up towards the spine at the end of your exhale. See if you can still find that hollowing out. Soften the belly first and then full inhale. We'll do some cat cows to release this in just a moment. Let's do one more of those. Pull up to the spine and to the crown of the head first, right? And then hollow out. Soften belly first when you're ready and inhale. And if you went faster than me, that's totally fine. Walk your hands. Oh, I told you cat cows. Don't let me take those away from you. Inhale the chest forward. Exhale, pull the belly up. Inhale, chest forward. So I'm not saying it every time, right? But we're using the pelvic floor and the corset. So that's some of those stabilizing muscles for the pelvis. I think they're really important muscles that we underuse because we don't ask them to engage often. And so we're doing that, right? But we're starting to move it up towards that solar plexus too. Every time we do Agni Sara, we're starting to circulate the energy through that whole abdominal cavity. So walk your hands a little forward. Find your upper body of downward dog because it just gets harder once we bear weight. Curl the toes under and head back to downward dog. Now, once you get there, if you want to pedal a couple of, times or sway hips or whatever that is, just to take a couple of moments to open up into this posture, right? And then some of that sacral stabilizing work we've been doing is come back to stillness, bend the knees a little bit. Imagine there's a block between your thighs. That was last week's work, right? Push into that imaginary block, feel that pelvic floor start to reach towards the crown of the head, which is we're upside down, obviously, right? And then we're going to go into that Agni Sara work again. Inhale. You don't have to. You could do just what you're doing, right? Exhale, pull that low belly to the spine and up to the crown of the head, and then try to hollow out the abdomen. Soften the belly when you're ready, and then inhale. Try to do one more of those. And come down into a child's pose. So in doing this work, by the way, we're also starting to work with the bandhas, and I'm starting to kind of introduce them. I don't like to talk heavily about them in the beginning of teaching them, because I think then people get really wrapped up in them, right? And they get really intellectual about them. But the bandhas are locks, right? We have 3 different main ones that we're working with today, and I'll talk more about that at another point in time. But for my friends who really want to play more with Mula Bandha, Udiyana Bandha, and Jalandhara Bandha, you are starting to play with those a little. So we're going to come up in a downward dog one more time, right? And we're going to add in a little bit more of a focus on that neck lock, adding it in, right? But again, don't think about the lock. Don't think about that. Just think about how this feels in your body. Come into downward dog, a little bend in the knees today, please. Move into that imaginary block between your thighs. Find your pelvic floor, right? And inhale, soft belly breath. Exhale. Pull that low abdomen in and up, and then hollow out the abdomen. And release that and let that go. So now this next time that you do that, right, find the block between the thighs, exhale, empty it out. Now let your chin just really gently, don't go extreme with this, tuck into your chest. And then for my friends who want to play a little bit more with this, I want you to think about that energy circulating all through the abdominal cavity, the thoracic cavity, right? This containment of this beautiful vital life force. And you'll inhale when you're ready. And bring those knees down, come back in a child's pose. Soften the arms down for a second. Bring your hands back by your knees, bring your knees together, and you can just sit back on your heels. Now, if this isn't accessible, use a block, whatever you need, right? So now go ahead and interlace your hands, push your palms forward. And then from there, without the ribs flaring, right? Keep that tailbone gently moving forward. Keep the kidney band broad, I'm going to call it, as you reach the arms up. And this is really subtle. When you exhale, don't hollow out the abdomen. That's not the point this time, right? But we're going to feel that little baby pull. But I want you to notice how the pelvic floor gently pulls up, right, when we activate our corset. Can you feel that? Can you sense that? And we're going to be about 3 breaths here. So you're continuing to breathe, even though I'm not telling you when to. And just see if you can sense that little engagement of the pelvic floor at the end of the exhale. And then bring your arms back down by their side. And from here today, if it's okay, you can bring a block in and separate the feet a little bit. We're going to just sit for just a few moments to end our practice. You could lay down and do a Shavasana, but we're going to bring it into just an incredibly brief meditation. As always, you guys can continue to meditate, right? Once the video is over, you don't need me to guide you through that part necessarily, but find your long spine and see if, having woken up the pelvic floor, the deepest of the 4 abdominal layers, the corset, right? The transversus abdominus, all the same names in my world. Does that help you find a little bit of steadiness here? And we're not holding all of that right now, right? We're not gripping. And does that inform how the rest of the spine above it, I'm going to call it sits or stacks? And maybe notice if you feel like you have energy not only moving throughout your whole body, right, but particularly through the abdomen, maybe the whole torso, but we really worked in that abdominal cavity. Bring those hands together in front of the chest. Inhale. With an exhale, gently bow the head. By the way, here's Jalandhara Bandha. Very, very light rendition of it, obviously, right? But so since we talked about it today, so gently, like 20%, see if you can find that pelvic floor, the perineum lifting, as if I put ice right under your perineum just gently lifted off of the ice cube, yeah? Just a little gentle movement of the low abdomen in and up. The chin gently moving down. Namaste.